Goldman Sachs, Bank of America, Morgan Stanley. The biggest money managers in the world, and they don't manage a combined $13 trillion by accident. So when they're all talking about moving money into tangible assets, it's hard not to take notice. But what tangible assets? They named one that's guaranteed to surprise you: fine art, through Masterworks. Masterworks qualifies each of their paintings with the SEC, so they can split them into shares for you to invest in. They've sold 5 paintings this year alone, with the last 3 delivering 17%, 21%, and 33% net returns. Masterworks returns speak for themselves, enough that there's even a wait list right now. But you can skip the wait by signing up at masterworks.com and using the code 5minute. That's masterworks.com, promo code 5minute. See important Regulation A disclosures at masterworks.com/CD. Coming up on 5-Minute News. Task Force on Immigration Integration restarted by Biden. Opioid crackdown prevents patients' access to essential drugs. And US to announce breakthrough on clean energy generation. It's Tuesday, December 13. I'm Anthony Davis. The Biden administration is reinstating a task force that is aimed at helping immigrants and refugees integrate into the United States. The task force on new Americans will be run by the Domestic Policy Council, and the focus will be workforce training, education, and financial access, as well as language learning and the health of immigrants who have green cards and other types of legal status, according to the White House. A version of the task force has been in existence off and on since the mid-2000s, most recently under former President Barack Obama, before it lapsed under disgraced former President Donald Trump, whose restrictive policies were aimed at allowing as few migrants into the U.S. as possible. The Biden administration's approach to immigration, or more specifically immigrants, is more welcoming. The president has said many times that he feels they enrich the United States and make the nation stronger. The administration is currently grappling with increasingly large numbers at the US-Mexico border and a possible surge following the upcoming end of a COVID-era policy that allowed border officials to turn most migrants away. The Biden administration was using that policy to turn away increasing numbers of Venezuelans coming to the US-Mexico border. And the US cap on refugee admissions is also up again to 125,000 following deep cuts in the previous administration. That number excludes the roughly 180,000 Ukrainians and Afghans who came to the US through a different path that moves more quickly than the traditional refugee program, but only allows stays of up to 2 years. A crackdown by US drug wholesalers in response to the opioid crisis is preventing some pharmacists from dispensing a combination of stimulants and sedatives routinely prescribed by psychiatrists to help patients manage conditions like anxiety and ADHD. The 3 main U.S. pharmaceutical wholesalers, AmerisourceBergen Corp., Cardinal Health Inc., and McKesson Corp., tightened monitoring of suspicious orders from pharmacies in July as part of a $21 billion nationwide opioid settlement with attorneys general from 46 states, the District of Columbia, and 5 territories. Independent pharmacists were notified by the wholesalers that they would be cut off from the distribution of all controlled substances after filling prescriptions for psychiatric drugs such as the stimulant Adderall, used to treat attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, and anti-anxiety drug Xanax. These psychiatric drugs are regulated by the federal government as controlled substances that have high potential for abuse and addiction but are not opioids. Matthew Goldenberg, president-elect of the Southern California Psychiatric Society, a chapter of the American Psychiatric Association, said some members had complained that pharmacies were no longer comfortable filling combination prescriptions for controlled substances because of concern they could be blacklisted. The impact on independent pharmacies' prescriptions of psychiatric drugs from the widening crackdown on opioids has not been previously reported. There are just over 19,400 independent pharmacies in the US, representing just over one-third of all retail pharmacies, according to the NCPA. The US opioid crisis has caused nearly 650,000 overdose deaths since 1999 and is continuing to worsen, according to federal government data. The US Department of Energy will announce today that scientists at a national lab have made a breakthrough on fusion energy, the process that powers the sun and stars, that one day could provide a cheap source of electricity here on Earth. The scientists at Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory in California have achieved a net energy gain for the first time in a fusion experiment using lasers. Fusion works when nuclei of two atoms are subjected to extreme heat of 100 million degrees Celsius or higher, leading them to fuse into new larger atoms, giving off enormous amounts of energy. But the process consumes vast amounts of energy, and the trick has been to make the process self-sustaining and to get more energy out than goes in, and to do so continuously instead of just brief moments. If fusion is commercialized, which backers say could happen in a decade or more, it would have additional benefits, including the generation of virtually carbon-free electricity, which could help in the fight against climate change without the amounts of radioactive nuclear waste that today's fission reactors produce. Energy Secretary Jennifer Granholm is slated to hold a media briefing today on a major scientific breakthrough. Investors, including Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, and John Doerr, have poured money into companies building fusion. Private industry secured more than $2.8 billion last year, according to the Fusion Industry Association, for a total of about $5 billion in recent years. You can subscribe to 5 Minute News on YouTube with your preferred podcast app. Ask your smart speaker or enable 5 Minute News as your Amazon Alexa flash briefing skill. Subscribe, rate and review online at 5minute.news. 5 Minute News is an Evergreen podcast covering politics, inequality, health and climate, delivering independent, unbiased and essential world news daily. If you enjoy 5 Minute News, join me for the Weekend Show podcast. Big picture conversations with expert guests about the state of America. Available every Sunday with Midas Touch and 5 Minute News. Search and subscribe to the Weekend Show.